So, welcome to What's Art Got to Do with It. I'm joined this evening by singer-songwriter Jen Murdza. Jen, welcome.
Hello, nice to see you,
Hello.
Deb.
So I'm going to share a brief bio, and I always say that my brief bio in no way does you justice, and so people will get to know you as we move through the conversation. You were born in Boston, lived there for many years. Your songwriting style, you're a singer-songwriter, among other things, and we'll get into that. Your songwriting style has been described as an ironic marriage of somber lyrics and playful rhythmic grooves, and you blur the lines like no other, which you do, which is great. The Boston Globe wrote, soulful standout Jen Murdza has beaten the pack by continually defying genres. ATO recording artist Brandi Carlile said, I got to see Jen's set and thought it was really amazing. It was really nice to see another girl singing really big and singing loud. We may kidnap her and take her on the rest of the tour with us. Did they ever do that?
No, but I had a bag
Damn it.
packed.
Their mistake. Other career highlights include your Lowell Summer Music Series, where you were supporting Brandi Carlile. You were named Artist of the Week with the XM Satellite Radio Radar Report. You were named Best New Act with the Boston Music Awards. You were a nominee for Best New Act. You were a nominee. Mountain Stage New Song New England Regional Finalist. You were a Starbucks Music Makers semifinalist. Metronome magazine listed your song Reboundin' as a top 5 CD at the time. And you were part of the New York's Songwriter Circle at the bitter end. And alumni in that circle include Vanessa Carlton and Nora Jones. So you're in good company, and so are they. Welcome. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
We've known each other for a long time. I worked with your wife, Angela, at NECN in Boston. We all became friends. We had some great times. Eventually, I moved to New York, and you and Ange moved to LA, which is where you are right now. How many years ago did you move to LA?
Yeah, it's been 11 years. Yeah, flew
Wow.
by.
11 years. Wow. And you followed a job out there, right? As I recall.
Yeah, I was always trying to coax Ange out this way, but it was lucky like that someone I worked with in Boston had a contact at Fox. So I got to, like, literally I flew out for an interview. They flew me out and I got the job and moved very shortly after that.
Yeah, I remember it was fast.
It was really fast, but it was great, obviously, to come out with a job ahead of everything. So then, so Ange didn't have to be worried about, she could take her time to look for her job. So
right. Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
So you have intriguing stories both on and off stage, is how I would describe who you are. You're a software engineer by day, which is notable in its own right from a gender and diversity perspective in the tech world. And I'd like to come back a little bit later in the conversation to the work you're doing today with STEM, which is an artist-based, artist-centric distribution platform for musicians. And I think it's really intriguing and I think really important to hear what that organization is doing and your work with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so first, though, I'd like to just dive right into your life as a singer-songwriter.
Okay.
So when did you first feel the music inside? Like, how did that discovery work for you?
Probably in the womb. I mean, like I really had very close relationship with my mom, and my mom and I just sang all the time. I mean, since I can remember, we would sing, and it was like one of our ways that we connected just on the regular. And she had a beautiful voice that I just remember. I have so many memories of us being in the car and just hearing her sing along to the radio. And at that time, it was often like a Karen Carpenter song.
Yeah, sure.
And she sounded quite a bit like Karen Carpenter. Like she had that kind of smooth voice, and so I loved when she sang. And so she was always really encouraging of anything I did creatively. She was a very creative person, and so very young. Like I remember, like one Christmas, my parents got my brothers all these like instruments, and I was like a little bit young for that, but I was really like pretty envious of all these guitars and everything that they had. And so I used to dream about, like, I would go to sleep at night and I would just picture this guitar that I saw once in a window. And that was like, one day I'm going to have a guitar. I want a motorcycle and I want to live in Hollywood. And those were like my dreams when I was like 3 years old.
Oh my God.
And I got all of
who you were.
So,
You.
but my mom like was really supportive. Like I remember like I borrowed one of my brother's guitars and I went to my neighbor's house, my next door neighbor Philip, and we were just always into something new and we started just like messing around. He had a bass guitar and then we sort of just started to like play Ozzy Osbourne music and we started like a band, you know. So we both got guitar lessons at the same time and we would write songs and it was like, you know, just really fun because both of our moms are like really behind us like doing that. They knew that we were like really into it and they didn't treat it like a goofy thing. They took it seriously with us. And so,
Mm.
you know, they would like let us rehearse very loudly and listen to, you know, when we wanted to show them something we worked on. And we would record ourselves all the time and play it back. And so it was like very early, like probably between 8 and 9, that I was like really get into actually like songwriting. And
Wow, that's
I was
young.
into heavy
8
metal.
and 9.
So, but it was just it was in my family. Like I have a brother that just could play piano by ear. He's just has that natural ability.
Mhm.
A lot of singing and sort of like ability to pick up an instrument and sort of do something on it, whether it was like really proficient or not. Like we just kind of all had that like natural desire to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, so early I took guitar lessons and then I think when I got to be like a teenager, I kind of like stepped away from that and kind of got all kind of caught up in the high school like, you know, clique thing and, you know, kind of trying to find my way into like fitting into the crowd. And so I wasn't really doing the music as much until I got into college. And then somewhere in like my second year, I said, I'm gonna buy myself a guitar. And so I went and found something cheap and started learning songs again that I was into at that time. And gosh, I remember we came out here actually to LA for my last semester of college, and we went away, like the whole class went away to this resort up in Channel Islands, and they told us that there was going to be like a talent night. And so I had my guitar and I decided to like learn a few covers and I ended up getting up and performing and I was so nervous because I hadn't done that in forever. But it was a blast. And so I kind of just stuck with that. And it's like in my early 20s that through a friend I worked with, met some guys that were doing open mics at the Barn in Somerville, in Davis Square.
Mhm.
And they were looking for someone to sing, and she just kind of connected us. And it was like for a good like couple of years there, we had this band, and we were really heavily songwriting and gigging. And that was where like it became sort of a different level for me, where I was like
Mm.
taking it more professionally and getting some like decent gigs and getting to open for some good local acts and sort of like taking a little bit more care with like how I like wrote a song and
Mhm.
the way that I was playing my guitar and singing, just sort of like revisiting that, taking lessons again and trying to, you know, take it more seriously. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, that time in Boston, it really did feel like you were, you know, really entering into the music scene. You know,
yeah,
getting attention, performing regularly. Is that a fair characterization of
yeah,
in there? Yeah.
absolutely. I was really lucky. I think things happen serendipitously, like when you're kind of ready for the opportunity
Yeah.
and it shows up. And so it was like not the right fit for me long term, the band I was in, but I had a lot of fun. I had so much fun with these guys. They were really all just great guys, really good friends, really supportive. I learned a lot from working with them, but and inevitably I decided I wanted to do something like different stylistically, and so I ended up kind of being on my own more until
Mhm.
I hooked up with someone that was booking me on the regular. He was booking me at gosh, what was it? The Sky Lounge, I think, in Somerville. I have to think back though. But Joe Filoni was booking me, and then I found out through his bartender that he was like this phenomenal guitarist, and he said you should really ask him to sit in with you sometime. And I did, and all of a sudden that was it. We were just always doing gigs together, and he became like my guitarist.
Yeah.
Uh, so for the rest of my time in Boston, pretty much every gig I did, I had Joe along with me.
You were evolving as a musician. You know, what else was happening for you during that time? I mean, how, you know, in retrospect, looking back, how did that experience carry you forward, you know, as an artist?
Ooh, let me tell you, I was probably going through the hardest time of my life when the music was really starting to pick up for me. Gosh, I had a lot going on. Like I'd say just just before I hit 30, I started to notice that I was having a lot of like almost I can see it all now very clearly, but I was starting to have like health issues.
Mm,
And I was getting like a lot of like brain fog, and I was having like carpal tunnel, and I was just I would get like eye strain, and a lot of times I would just write it off as it was me working at the computer all day.
mhm,
And my doctors would say that. My doctor actually said I should change my career.
mm,
um, and I had someone I worked with that was like, you look like I used to look," and she had this hypothyroidism.
mhm.
And I decided to ask my doctor to check me for it, and she actually completely invalidated me. And so, like
Wow.
for 10 years, I was actually asking several different um, doctors that I had to check me out, and they just kind of blew me off. And it turned out I've had a serious, like my thyroid almost doesn't exist at this point. That's how much damage had been done to it over that time. But I wasn't understanding why. I was like, I would have a gig, and I would get I'd be on stage, and I would get this tremendous sharp pain in my spine, like a nerve pain, and it would like really debilitate me, and I'd have to like try to get through my set, and sometimes it would really interfere with my ability to sing.
Mm.
And just like kind of like having all these issues where my hands might lock up in the middle of
Oh,
playing,
yeah,
and I didn't
yeah.
realize I had an actual health issue. And on top of all of that, and over the years of research, seeing that it's very likely related, that the hypothyroidism could be a result of trauma, I was realizing, coming to terms with that I had been abused by a sibling. So
Mm,
I was
mhm,
coming to terms with that, which was a very incredibly dark period. So all this
mhm.
time that I was actually becoming kind of a little bit more visible publicly, I was
Mm,
at the same time going through these incredible traumatic moments, and having like all this sort of like breakdown within my family, where they were really unhappy with me bringing this up, speaking the truth about it. And so as I was having some of the most amazing opportunities show up in my life that were like my dreams,
yeah.
coming to fruition, I didn't have my family's support. They weren't there. They weren't showing up for those moments. So it was like a really strange dichotomy, but the music certainly got me through that time.
Mm,
Like that was a big lesson for me. And I had a friend that at the time, he was trying to sort of like mentor me, and he was like this sort of like virtuoso piano player, like no kidding. Like actually, he like studied with Bill Evans when he was a child. Really phenomenal pianist, and he was trying to mentor me, and he said to me, Jen, no matter what you do in your life, never let go of the music, because that's going to be the thing that gets you through everything. Like
mm.
when all else is gone, you're going to find that, and that's going to keep you moving forward. And that is absolutely proven true for me.
I think about it in my own life, and it's for me, it's painting and
Yeah.
and to some degree writing.
Yeah.
And those are the things that when everything else is crumbling,
Hmm.
that's right. I mean, that's where we
Yeah.
go.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can think of it in a simplified way. Like the other day, my daughter Mabel was watching a show that had something scary on it, and Ange and I said, like, why don't you paint? And she painted like one of the scariest pictures I've ever seen, but it's amazing. It's actually really cool. But like we can just process our feelings.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's like at the basic level of doing something creative, right? Is just to get
Yeah.
the feelings like out. But
Yes.
then we can also journey through it and sort of like create a new narrative for ourselves through
Yeah,
it.
it's so true because it's the personal, so it's the macro and the micro, right?
Yeah.
Because and the premise of this show is, what's art got to do with it? And so here we are in this time of incredible uncertainty and unrest. And, artists and culture bearers, traditionally have always, we bear witness, we participate where we can, we influence, sometimes we disrupt points of view, policies, power structures. Um, and there's a need during a time like this for artist intervention, but you could argue that artist intervention is required at so many different times
Yeah.
throughout our individual lives on a personal level, and then certainly as it relates to a more social human level.
Yes.
And that's what I'm hearing from you is that these artistic interventions that we might do for ourselves are really helping us find a new way forward.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think of it, in order to be creative, uh, in order to be creative in a way that actually reaches people, you have to become completely vulnerable, completely honest. Otherwise, people can see through that. They can feel when you're not. And I've
Yeah.
certainly had moments where I've kind of dialed it in, but when you're actually having that sort of magical connection moment where you're all having this moment together. You're like giving energy to each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that is for me like kind of the glue in my life. Like when I'm feeling absolute despair and I want to shut myself down, I can just throw on like some old song that I love from when I was a kid, and I just feel I can feel my entire self open again.
Yeah.
And like I actually was kind of in a funk this morning, to be honest with you, and I put on I made this playlist for myself on Spotify that is really just utterly cheesy. Like the cheesiest possible.
Those
70s.
can be the best. Those are the best sometimes.
And by, a couple of songs in, I was kind of up and bouncing around a little bit. So it's like a cure-all.
And there are different art forms, right? And music, though, music it transcends. There's something so visceral and something so spiritual, even when we're not even willing to call it spiritual, there's that holy aspect to listening to music. And then, for you as a singer-songwriter, there is that experience of being able to take that one step further and actually create and perform.
Yeah.
You can sort of be with all of that and find a way to express it through your music.
Absolutely. And I'll say like there is no better feeling to me than when I see folks like get up from their seats and start to dance. And I don't care if I'm at that moment, if I'm performing a cover or original song. Of course, it does feel a bit better when it's an original song, but just when you've suddenly given people joy, and they've just whatever they carried in with them at that moment, they've just let it all go. And I love that.
That's great. I love that. And it's a perfect segue to our first clip.
Oh, okay.
Because we're going to see people actually getting up and dancing too. It was when you were opening for Brandi Carlile in Boston. So we'll share that.
It's been quite a while since I last saw you. And I still can miss you, baby. Oh, well, it's perfectly clear. It took me quite a long time just to let it sink in. How am I ever gonna get over? Never see your smile again. But wasn't it good while it lasted? Some things just don't go as we planned. No. Well, I don't know if I'm ever gonna see you, my friend. Oh, but I still gotta thank you for all the fun you gave. When we wake up each morning, I'm hit with the head. You're no longer there beside me. No, there's nobody to scratch my itch. Nobody to snow until the sun pleads its case. Well, alright, maybe I miss that so much. Oh, but I'd still love to see your face. But wasn't it good while it lasted?
I'm going to let that play underneath a little bit. What was that like for you, that moment when you were opening for Brandy?
That was the best. That was the absolute best moment I ever had doing music. I don't know if you ever felt this with anything that you've done artistically, but you ever have a moment where you know everything's just aligned for you to succeed, like that every single possible thing is just ready for you to just show up and succeed. And I could just feel that. I felt it that day, but when I got to the venue, first of all, the people that run it are just so lovely. In fact, the person who booked me invited Ange and I to come back for another show for an artist that I happen to really like. They were just so friendly and warm, really supportive of us just having a good show. We got to have like a real sound check for like a good amount of time. I had people show up, people that didn't always necessarily show up. I had a lot of people there I didn't even expect to see. And just knowing that I had that support and that people were there just to have a lovely time. It wasn't sort of like, I don't know, sometimes I think when you gig and you are inviting people that you know over and over again, you get like, you kind of are aware that there's like this obligatory kind of feeling to inviting people. But this was such a lovely evening at a beautiful venue, with also followed by this tremendous artist that was like, I'm sure most people hadn't heard about in my life. So it was like a real gift for them to get exposed to her and her band. And so I just remember this moment was phenomenal. So I had this great set, like everything went really, really smoothly with the band and everything. And I was on such a high because I knew it went well, that like I was on this high and I just couldn't wait to find Ange. All I could think about was I got to go see Ange and tell her how just great that felt. Yeah. So I left, get behind stage and I'm walking out the exit, and Brandy Carlisle is coming up to me, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like still thinking like, Ange, I got to go find Ange. And she's like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, that was a great set. Like, I really enjoyed it. And she's talking to me and I'm walking and I'm still leaving and she's following me to the gate. Like, I'm not even like getting what's happening.
Grasping the moment.
Like,
yeah.
And she's being so lovely and gracious and just really, like, I could tell she was being really sincere. She certainly doesn't have to go up to all her like opening acts and say that. So it was like, so I'm like taking it in, but not because I'm just like, oh, I got to find Ange. So I kind of like, I can't believe that still happened. It's like one of those moments that if I could go back, I would stay still and probably stay too long. But I ended up talking to her kind of briefly, and then I found Ange, and I'm talking to Ange, and she's at this table where my CDs are, because she was so good about, you know, just being my manager and taking care of all that stuff. And I'm just like talking to her, and she's like, Jen, like, look. And I'm like, what? And she's like, there's a line. I had this like line of like 100 people waiting to meet me and buy CDs and take photos with me. Wow. And it was just lovely. I mean, it was so nice because I could talk to each person. There's like young and old. I got to see children that like were so excited. Like someone grabbed my set list and wanted me to autograph it. And it's like, you know, it's like the ego loves that. you can't deny, right? But it was just so nice to see that people had such a nice time. They wanted to come and meet me or buy my music to continue to hear it. You know, like that's like your absolute, that's the goal. Like that's what when you're trying to do that for a living, that is the goal. So I spent a good amount of time like having these fans show up, and then at the end of the night, like some folks wanted to take a picture with me and with Brandy. So I kind of got to see Brandy again. But it was just, it couldn't have gone off more perfectly. It was like the complete success, to the point that I didn't know what to do with myself afterwards, because I had something that was at that level, that going to play a Borders bookstore or some of the usual venues I was doing kind of like felt like, I gotta get more.
Right.
How am I gonna get more?
You're inching up further and further up that ladder. Yeah. So
it became difficult because, and I think this is true for all sort of creative ventures, is you plateau. You like reach a certain level, you plateau, and you have to kind of get to the next level. And it's kind of like you have highs and lows because of that experience. So I had that great moment, but I wouldn't say that necessarily I was ready for the next thing. I had a lot more work to do to improve myself as a performer, to be able to perform at that size. I was used to small venues, and so there was, like, I was lucky that I was still getting like some good opening gigs. I often was getting an opening gig up in Burlington, Vermont at a venue called Higher Ground. So I got to open for some decent artists there as well. And it was also like a beautiful venue with great warm staff that always just made me feel like I could have been like an important person, you know. And so I had some lovely experiences like that, but that one was, that to this day was the topper for me. And Ange was like beside herself because Brenda Carlisle is just her girl.
Yeah, and you characterize that moment so well, Jen. And I'm wondering, when you were in the moment with all of that, do you think that you were grasping it in the moment, or do you think that how you just expressed it came to you a little bit later on in retrospect?
I was present.
You were present. Yeah,
I really was, because I remember there was this young girl that would show up at some of my gigs, and she kind of was hanging out with me. We were watching the Brandy set together, and I just looked at her at one point and I was like, I could just pass out right now. Like, this is everything. And Brandy did in the microphone say, like, I think we should kidnap her. And then this girl also, she looked at me, she's like, and I was like, I'm ready.
let's go. Now, it's interesting because I think that in those moments, as artists move around, and it's never straight up, if up is even the right way to be thinking about it, but it's this very kind of wavy line. But if we think about it in a sort of a hierarchical fashion, we do ebb and flow, and when you have those high moments like that, you feel that what you're capable of, and you really know that you're capable of even more. Like, you just know it. You talked earlier about lines to succeed, and they're ready for you to show up, and so you're looking for that next line. Right. It's a mix of you've got to create that line for yourself, but yet there are also so many other outside factors and influences that also play a role.
Absolutely. One thing that I've never been good at is networking. I never did that work. I never did it in Boston, and I never really did it out here in Los Angeles. And I think, gosh, if I had really gotten uncomfortable and really start to focus a bit more on that networking aspect of things, like if I didn't have Ange, because Ange was really the secret sauce for me, because she became my manager. She believed in me enough to do that. And she just had that natural gift to know how to seek out the opportunities and how to message it. She knew how to like get to a booker and know they're getting all these requests to book. Let's not just say, oh, blah, 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 you should book Jen, but like, let's say, we see you have an opening on this night, and Jen would fit really well with this artist because, and she would do their job for them. And she just had like a natural knack at understanding the way to sort of make those opportunities really happen. And so having that partnership was essential. But I think we find that it's usually folks in our lives when we have opportunities, usually from people in our lives. Like, it's rare when it comes out of nowhere,
Absolutely. And it never really does, because
never really does.
all that work you're doing at 2 o'clock in the morning, or your sleepless nights, or whatever it looks like. There's all of that nobody will ever know about, nobody will ever see.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you have to do the work, you have to have the goods, but I think a lot of times we do need a partner to help us match that with an opportunity.
Yeah, it's a good point, and increasingly so. It is very difficult, because almost for all creatives today, there's an expectation that you're going to do it all.
That's a farce. It's a farce. I mean, I think there are the rare unicorn people that they do the whole thing. They're really like the independent artist that does the whole thing, and they do the business side of it. There are those people for sure. They are rare. As I'm learning from my work, from people who have been seasoned in the industry and in the the real like big label, a
Mhm.
big agency industry, they say, look, there really isn't an independent artist. Everyone that's successful has a team, whether it's one other person. Like no one's doing this by themselves. It's just not, they can't. They have to have a team. So that's what the insiders know, that story is pretty, but it's not quite accurate.
Yeah, and it's working for the systems that are in place. It's working
Yeah.
for corporate America to not
Yeah.
have to apply those partnerships and to have to
Yeah.
spend that money. So and to put the burden, if you will, burden on the artist. And I think it applies across genres. As a
Yeah.
visual artist, I feel it tremendous burden
Hmm.
to do it all. And I'm being told, frankly, in many of my circles that I need to. I need to do it all. And it's a struggle.
But people say that, but you know, there's the people in your life that have formed a relationship with someone that owns a gallery, for instance. And because they have formed that relationship, they're going to get a showing and they're going to get their art exposed in a way that maybe you aren't. And so even if someone is, doing it themselves, they're not in a vacuum.
Right.
So
No, it's right. And you're right. Networking is important. That networking is important. And I want you to know that I really can empathize with you because I can do it. I can turn it on. It's not my favorite thing in the world to
yeah.
do, but
Hmm.
but it's necessary.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that. I'm wondering if we might want to play another song while we're still in Boston, as it were,
Okay.
before we
I
move
didn't
on.
realize
Today.
it was a This Is Your Life.
Is your life. So, did I ever tell you? And would you like to just tee that song up for us?
Yeah, that song I wrote after my grandmother had passed away. And thank you, by the way, because you were at her funeral. I remember you and other folks from NACN showed up that day, and I will absolutely never forget that. My grandmother now she passed after my mom had passed, like gosh, like another decade later, and she was my best friend from the time I was a child. Like if there's such a thing as a soulmate, she was definitely a soulmate for me. We just got each other and we just could give each other like a little look and just know exactly what was happening. I don't know. We would seek each other out if we were at a family gathering or anything. We just found, I think, real comfort in one another. We knew how to be playmates. And so she was somebody that, much like my mom, the two of them, I feel very lucky because I really don't think everybody has this experience. And it's something I assumed people did because you know what you know, but like they literally loved me unconditionally. They saw me, they knew who I was, they knew I was gay, like they knew all the things about me that make me me. And they just loved me. They didn't love me in spite of those things. They just loved me as I was. Um and so I was really like blessed to have known that kind of love.
Mhm.
And so I wrote the song after my grandmother passed away, and it's about that. Gosh, what I've learned about, it's kind of interesting. I could go on forever about this topic, but it's funny. But I've been asked to perform that song at sort of like celebrations of life,
Mhm.
and I've been told by deacons or whoever's been sort of like hosting those ceremonies, like, you're good at this, you should be doing these. And so I kind of so I guess I've been asked to do weddings and I've been asked to do like funerals. And what I've learned though is that I write a lot about love, but I write about love from sort of those two endpoints, and I guess all at once, which is that I've really learned that love is forever. When it's true, it deepens, and you absolutely know it unquestionably when the person is no longer with you, and that you can still feel it so powerfully that it feeds your soul still, even when they're not there, that they loved you up so well that it lasts your entire life. So that's really what the song is about, and that I've been able to convey that message to people who have needed to hear it. And so that's been probably one of the most special experiences I've had as far as songwriting, is that this song has reached people who've really needed to have that message, that the love is there forever. and you don't have to have the person anymore. Your love transforms into something bigger than it could have ever been when the person was physically here, because you don't have those human constraints anymore.
Thank you, Jen. Without further ado, let's play this beautiful song.
You are the last one I ever wanted to say goodbye to. Did I ever tell you that if I had known this would be the last time that we would be? I would have said, oh, I'll give you my heart, shoot it straight up into the sky, take it with you forever and ever. But don't listen it back to me when I cry. It's always the ones we long for that leave us. Yeah, they leave us where we are. Well, I've only had few heroes in my short life. You should be mine. Astray. Oh, you had a stray from beyond anything that I've ever known. You had known so long until you had to let go.
Jen, I'm going to come back to us. Let that play underneath. Such a beautiful song. Such a beautiful song. Thank you. You can feel your love coming through in that song.
Yeah, I've had moments where I performed that and just started weeping.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it's one of those like open
Yeah.
moments, you know?
Yeah. And we need more of that in life.
Absolutely.
We really do. So, okay, so we did Boston. Let's move to LA now. Let's move on. You moved to Los Angeles, worked with Fox, you're a software engineer, and you got married. You and Angela got married.
Yeah.
And you gave birth to your beautiful daughter, Mabel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You were a family. You are a family. I think that artists with families, grapple with, there's the practicalities of earning a living and having a job. There's the practicalities of being a wife, a mother, everything in between. And, maybe there are collective disciplines at play in these moments in our lives,
Right.
with caveats. But where has the music been inside all of that?
Yeah. So, well, I'll say that I came to Los Angeles, which is very different from Boston, because Boston is such a small town that you can be a big fish in a small pond there. I think it's easier to kind of carve out a place for yourself. Los Angeles is a machine for the entertainment industry, and it's very predatory of the people that want to make it here. And so I found very quickly that all like the hip venues are pay to play scenario. So they want you to buy up all like the tickets ahead of time. And I didn't know a lot of people here. And I was working really, really hard at my job. It was a very stressful job. It was a job that was a cacophony of drama happening in a studio environment. And, it was one of those things where I would be ready to leave for the night and find out that the show's about to go live and I have to all of a sudden build this web page I didn't know about because it has to be ready for when the show's like over or something. And so, I ended up filling a managerial gap at this job and kind of like taking on a lot of responsibilities administratively, trying to fix things. And so I wasn't able to have the energy to put into my music very much as far as like gigging. I was lucky that I found a really great tasting room out in Malibu, this beautiful little vineyard. They have like an outdoor tasting room that's just across the way from the vineyard. And that kind of became like my regular gig that I would do. And they would like pay me in a box of wine and like give me another little bit of money that I would give to like my drummer that I had this really great drummer, Josh Doyle. And he's also a really great songwriter. So I started like working with him on songwriting and doing stuff for licensing. And we actually got some stuff like, I think like we had a song on like Dance Moms. I've had some stuff of like that nature where I've had some licensing and I still get like little royalties from those things. And that's great. I mean, I cannot complain about that. I wanted to do more of that. And I also wanted to work on my own music again as well. And that's just been, a challenge of time, to carve out. But just before I stepped into this new job, I had the luxury of, in my different careers I've had since I've been out here, I found an opportunity to become a vendor when I was just about to give birth. I became a vendor for the company I had previously been working at full time, and I could be part-time as the vendor and stay home. So it was like this just perfect situation to become a new mom and be home and, all of that. So, so because I was part-time and the job was not terribly demanding, I found that I was being creative again. And so I started writing again. And so I was kind of preparing to put together another album just as I got this new job. And then I've sort of just been immersed in that. And it's been very busy. This job has been very demanding as well, but I feel like in a good way.
So tell us about STEM, where you are now. Because I think
Yeah.
this is a really exciting thing for any musicians who might be watching.
Absolutely. So it was really fortuitous. I kind of like after the election, as you and I had talked quite a bit, I was looking for something I wanted to do to improve things in the world some way. And so I had, as a software engineer, I had a whole bunch of like app ideas I was working on. And Josh actually became someone that was really interesting to bounce ideas off of. He's very smart. He has a lot of ideas, very creative person. So we were starting to think about different apps we could build and different problems we could solve. And one of the things we ended up coming up with was this idea of having this app for songwriters where they could keep all of their catalog, everything from like the files, the recordings, the lyrics, but not just that, have a place for them to put all of the metadata that is needed when you want to submit your music to a licensing opportunity. You have to have all these you have to have the music like tagged with all of these things to make it easier for the folks in the music supervision departments to know, like, is your song gonna fit? Because they have too much to read through, right? It's again, like Ange would do, like trying to solve the problem for them. So really trying to make this place where you could not have to worry, like you could import your music that you've already released from iTunes or Spotify, sort of like get your catalog in there, try to take as much administrative work off of the songwriter to sort of like have this sort of like beautiful little app that they have while they're writing music. They could put something new they're working on and collaborate, or they can just manage their existing catalog. And then I wanted to take it a step further and have something where they had like analytics about their music that could kind of tell them like, what are the patterns about the songs that you write? Like, what are the patterns about the art that you're creating? And what are the patterns that are happening currently in the industry that you may be not recognizing this hole that you could be filling? And sort of like trying to really make it a tool to help inspire artists to sort of create for the opportunities that maybe they're not aware are bubbling up based on trends that are happening.
Sure.
So I'd gotten the app kind of pretty far. And at that time, things were kind of like looking a little shaky with my job where we had been acquired and they kind of wanted to hire me full time, but doing things I didn't really want to do and not a great salary, to be honest. So I just sort of like looked, I had this this woman I had worked for at a previous job who I knew had gone into venture capitalism agency. And I just sort of like knew she was up to good things. And I went and just checked out their portfolio and saw this company. And I was like, this is really interesting. And then I dug in deeper and I was like, wow, they're really about a lot of what I'm trying to do here. It's not exactly the same solution, but they're trying to solve very similar problems. And so I wrote a cover letter and talked about what I'd been working on and sort of like why I thought I would be a great fit for the company. And I like came in and I got hired the day I interviewed, like at the end of the interview, which never happened.
I'm not surprised.
It was just amazing, like another amazing moment of things just kind of aligning. And it's been an amazing company because, and I'll talk about what they're about. So they're really about enabling the independent artists. And independent, when they say independent, they don't mean like the person who's by themselves, because again, that is such a rare situation, but the smaller teams, the smaller labels who are kind of like dependent upon the big labels, because the reality of small labels is they're owned by the big labels. They make it look like there's this independent world of music, but the big labels are powering those independent labels. So this is about getting the artists and all of the people that work with them, their teams, more money, the money they are really due, without these predatory record label deals where the label gets like 80% of your earnings. And so this is about getting you more of your money directly. They pay every month from your streaming royalties and your downloads. You get like, that's a very unusual thing, to get a check cut to you, and whoever else has a percentage of the rights to that music. So one of the things that the company did, and now there are some other companies doing it, but they were at the forefront of this, was allowing you to set up what we call splits on the music. So, and you could use that very creatively. And the way STEM intended it was like, you could go make a video and decide you're going to give 2% of the streams to the person that, you know, helped you make your video, instead of paying them with cash. They're going to get this check. So so all you have to do is add these people. They accept that they are a shareholder. They put in some of their bank information, and they're getting checks cut from STEM. Like, the artist doesn't have to get a check in the mail, which I know about because I have to do this sometimes, very rarely. And go, all right, so-and-so has 20% of this. I have to figure out what to send them, and worry about all the taxes and everything. So this is like taking that administrative piece off of the artists, off of their team, making it really easy. And you're getting also far more, like, you're getting distribution from us, and you're getting a real hand-holding account team that's going to help. I mean, they're going to be at your beck and call and help you do all the things, and a great pitch team that's helping you get licensing and get onto playlists on Spotify. Like, we have people really working to help push your music as well. But the newer avenue that the company is going is really in becoming like a lender to artists. So instead of getting your money in this predatory record deal where you're having to give ownership of your work as well as getting a small percentage of the earnings, we don't take any ownership of your music at all. And we actually give you a much better breakdown. Like, you're getting much higher percentage. We take a small percentage. So you can get, we look at your earnings, your current earnings, and we kind of like say, like, we pre-qualify you essentially. And you can kind of see what you might qualify for, and then opt in for an advance from us. And then we recoup that from your earnings until you meet that. And then when you meet it, it's over. There's no like forever on the line. So it's Milana Rabkin Lewis is the CEO. She's the founder of the company, and she used to work at CAA, I believe, and so she used to represent artists. So she's seen it from all ends. Like, we've had conversations how artists will put in their last name first into ASCAP, or they'll misspell something and they won't get their money. Like, there's all these things that the art, like, a creative person, to be creative cannot be like thinking about all these little details, and they don't think about those details. Like, a creative personality is less likely probably
less likely
to be doing that. So this is about trying to make it a lot easier for you to just get the money for the art that you're putting out into the world.
And all of the organizational help and having a platform. You're essentially replacing the big labels? Is that a fair way to?
That is the goal. That is
Yeah.
the goal, is not, to not become like another label, but just give you all of the things that you really get from being in the label, which really in the end is money, the ability to get money. Like, we have an artist that instead of getting a mortgage loan, they got one of our advances, and the percentage, the interest rate is lower than a mortgage. It was easier for them to get qualified, because the artist it's really hard for an artist to go to a bank and say, like, give me money, look what I do for a living, and this is what I make.
Right.
We have the direct connection of getting their streams and their downloads, so we know how much money they're earning. There's not that kind of difficulty in proving that you're a reliable person to lend money to for a creative person.
Yeah,
So,
it's extraordinary. It's such a innovative model, and it's democratizing what it means to be a musician and not be at the mercy, as you say, of the predatory music world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fabulous, just fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, we are winding up the hour here. We were a little late getting started, so we're going to run over, which is no problem. So I'm going to tee up what's coming up next. It's the closing lightning round of questions.
Oh, yes. Okay.
In Inside Actor Studio, and then Jen is going to take us out with a live performance. So you'll definitely want to stick around for that. And I'm going to also just put up where people can find you wherever they find music. You're there.
That's right.
So
I'm everywhere.
Visit your website, but she's everywhere. So you'll find her. All right, ready for the questions?
Yeah.
Right. What makes you awestruck? What makes you say wow?
Oh, yeah. When people, when I witness somebody growing, like having a moment where they've learned something in front of me, and they've grown, and they're like having a discovery, and being really authentic, is like the coolest experience. Yeah.
Very nice. What is the kindest thing someone has ever done for you?
Oh, gosh. Well, I could list a lot, but honestly, it was like my mom and my grandmother just showed me that I was lovable, just right away. Like, I have no doubt in my mind for the rest of my life that I've been loved in this life. So, yeah.
Beautiful. What is your favorite tree?
Eucalyptus and I think cypress as well. We got married under a cypress tree. So.
That's right. I remember the photos.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What is your favorite smell?
Oh, Mabel's hair.
Love that.
Yeah.
What is your least favorite smell?
Oh, gosh. Old food in the trash.
Last question. What is your favorite kitchen utensil?
I have not used it in a while, but I have a crepe spatula, a wooden crepe spatula. I used to love to whip up crepes, and so one day I'll do that again.
Got it. That's great. Jen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful conversation.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you
Happy
so much. Say hi to Angela.
I will.
And I'll be back in 2 weeks with author Elizabeth Cunningham. Thank you all for watching, but don't go away, because Jen is going to take us out. She's going to perform live for us. So
I'm going to take these off and
okay.
Not too loud. Let's see how this goes. Thank you again, Deb. Appreciate it.
You bet.
This is a new song, ish song, called Wasting Time.
I realize it's terrible. I never did get comfortable sharing myself with you. But now I feel it's much too late for me to try and save the day. I've wasted my chances, it's true. Regret is all I feel. there's nothing I can do to get you back. I've been wasting time, afraid to put my heart on line. All I'm left here with are my regrets. Your love was like a cannonball, but I was much too scared to fall. I hid from your light and ran away. I took myself into my bed, turn out the light, rest my head while I dream that you'll be there. Regret is all I feel, knowing I've lost you for real. And there's nothing I can do to get you back. I've been wasting time, afraid to put my heart on the line. All I'm left here with are my regrets. I've been wasting time, afraid to put my heart on the line. All I'm left here with are my regrets. All alone here with my regrets.
Now put your earbuds in so you can hear the applause. Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
Thank
What
you,
a
Deb.
treat. What a treat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay safe out there. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.